Okay, we're diving into something today. Something I think most people can relate to, at least a little bit. Stress.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When you're managing diabetes, stress, it's not just a feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this whole other factor that can really mess with your blood sugar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know from what you've been telling me, this has been kind of tough lately for you too, right?
Yeah.
So let's try to really break it down. How are stress and diabetes connected, and what can we actually do about it?
Yeah, so it's really easy to just get kind of caught up in, the day-to-day of managing diabetes, right? You focus on the things you're supposed to focus on, like diet and exercise, all that stuff, which, don't get me wrong, those things are super important.
Oh, sure.
But I think what's so fascinating here is how much our mental state, what's going on in our heads, how much that plays into the whole equation. It's not just about what you're putting in your body, it's also about what's going on in your head.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. I think we all know what stress feels like. You got those racing thoughts. You feel that tightness in your chest. But how does that translate to actually impacting blood sugar? What's going on there?
Well, think about it like this. When you're stressed, your body's basically, it flips the switch on its ancient alarm system. It's fight or flight mode. It kicks in. And suddenly you've got these hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, that are just flooding your system.
Right, like a surge of energy.
Yeah, to help you react. Yeah.
To react quickly to danger.
Exactly. And part of that response is that your liver starts releasing stored glucose into your bloodstream, right? So it's basically, it's giving you this quick energy boost to either fight or flee.
Right.
Which is, super helpful if you're facing down a saber-toothed tiger.
Right.
Not so much if you're, just stuck in traffic.
So our bodies haven't quite caught up to modern day stressors.
Kind of, yeah. It's this fight or flight response, it's meant to be temporary, right? It's like revving your car engine, but just for a short burst, to get out of a tricky spot.
Okay.
But if you keep that engine redlining constantly,
yeah,
you're gonna burn out.
Yeah, that's not good.
And it's not gonna be pretty.
So that's where the blood sugar trouble starts.
Yeah, when that stress becomes chronic, right? Your body, it kind of gets stuck in this state of constantly elevated blood sugar.
Yeah.
And that makes it, a whole lot tougher to manage your diabetes effectively.
Right.
It's like trying to hit a moving target when everything's, already out of whack.
And then on top of that, there's insulin.
Right.
Which has this super crucial job keeping our blood sugar in check.
Mm-hmm.
So how does stress mess with that whole process?
It's kind of like having a key,
Okay.
that doesn't quite fit the lock anymore.
Oh, okay.
Insulin's job, right? It's to unlock your cells and let that glucose in from your bloodstream.
Right.
But when those stress hormones, especially cortisol, they're constantly hanging around.
Yeah.
They basically make your cells less responsive to insulin.
Oh, okay.
So even if your body's producing enough insulin, it's not doing its job as efficiently.
So it's not working as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So that's the biological, the sciencey side of things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you were telling me about how, when you get stressed, you find yourself really struggling with emotional eating.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta admit, I'm totally guilty of that too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's incredibly common.
Yeah.
And, it makes sense. When we're stressed, our brains, they crave those comfort foods,
Yeah.
the things that release those feel-good chemicals like dopamine.
Hmm.
The problem is those comfort foods, well, they're often loaded with sugar or refined carbs,
Right.
which of course leads to those blood sugar spikes you're trying to avoid.
So it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
You've got the stress hormones, A&D, the food choices working against you.
Yeah, you got it. And it's not just the emotional eating either. Think about how stress impacts your sleep.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
I know you mentioned tossing and turning a lot lately.
Oh, yeah. Sleepless nights, they're definitely my stress kryptonite.
Yeah.
But how does that tie into blood sugar?
Well, research has actually shown that when you have poor sleep, it really messes with your glucose metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it messes with how your body processes and uses energy.
Okay.
So when you're, when you're sleep deprived, you might wake up, feeling sluggish,
Yeah.
and you might see those higher blood sugar readings, even if your diet hasn't changed.
Okay, so we've got the stress hormones messing with insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got those cravings leading to like not so great food choices. And sleep is just totally out of the window. It's like this domino effect, right?
It is.
I'm guessing like this also affects how much energy we actually have to like do things,
You got it. It's this vicious cycle. You're stressed, you're not sleeping well, and then your blood sugar's higher, which, can actually make you feel even more stressed.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, stress can just like zap your energy levels.
Right.
And it makes it harder to stick with those, healthy habits that are so important for managing diabetes, like exercise.
Right. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if stress makes it harder to remember things too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like even just basic things like taking your medication on time.
Absolutely. When you're stressed, your brain's just in overdrive.
Right.
And it can be so much harder to just stay on top of those daily tasks.
Right.
Which, includes medication. So it's not just the direct impact on blood sugar, it's how stress kind of ripples out and affects your whole management, like all of it.
Okay, now the good news is it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot we can do to like break this stress diabetes cycle.
Right.
But before we get into that, I think it's important to know how to recognize when stress is actually messing with our diabetes in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some red flags to be looking out for?
That's a great question. And it really starts with becoming like a detective of your own body.
Okay.
First and foremost, pay attention to your blood sugar readings.
Okay.
If those numbers are consistently high, even if you haven't changed your diet or your medication, that can be a big sign that stress is playing a role.
I bet mood changes are a big indicator too, right?
Absolutely.
Like feeling irritable or anxious or just completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, all of that. Don't dismiss those emotional cues.
Yeah.
Your mental state, it plays a huge role in your overall well-being, and it can definitely impact your blood sugar control.
Okay, so we've got blood sugar spikes, we've got the mood swings. What other clues should we be on the lookout for?
Well, sometimes your body will it'll kind of send you physical signals too.
Okay.
Like think about those tension headaches you've been having lately.
Yes.
Those can be a direct response to stress.
Okay. Yeah. And that feeling of being constantly tired, even when I've like technically gotten enough sleep.
That's a classic sign of chronic stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your body's just in overdrive, and it needs a break.
Okay.
So pay attention to those physical symptoms. They're trying to tell you something.
Okay. So we've got the blood sugar roller coaster. We've got the grumpy mood swings, and our bodies are basically like waving a giant red flag saying, hey, something's not right here.
Exactly.
So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, the good news is recognizing those signs. That's the first step to taking control, right? It's like you've cracked the code, and now you can start to like put the pieces together and build a stress management plan that actually works for you.
Okay, so let's talk strategy. Like, what are some tangible things we can do to like really dial down the stress and get those blood sugar levels back on track,
Yeah.
I know you mentioned mindfulness, but I got to admit that word always makes me think of like monks meditating on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about here?
Not necessarily. Mindfulness doesn't have to be this like grand mystical thing. It's really just about bringing your attention to the present moment, without judgment.
Oh, God.
It's like hitting the pause button on all that like mental chaos.
Right.
And just tuning in to what's happening, right now.
Okay, so that sounds a little more doable than scaling Mount Everest.
Right.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, there are tons of different techniques you can try. Meditation is one, but it doesn't have to be hours of sitting in silence.
Right.
Even just like 5 minutes of focused breathing can make a huge difference.
Okay.
I know you mentioned feeling overwhelmed lately, especially in the evenings. So maybe try incorporating a short breathing exercise,
Okay.
like right before bed. It can really help calm your nervous system down.
Yeah.
And kind of set you up for a better night's sleep.
Okay, that's a great idea. I'm definitely willing to try anything that might help me get some, decent shedma these days.
Right.
What else is in the mindfulness toolbox?
Well, there's progressive muscle relaxation.
Okay.
That's another great technique. And it's especially helpful if you're, if you're holding a lot of tension in your body, like those headaches you mentioned.
Yeah.
It basically involves tensing and then releasing different muscle groups.
Okay.
And it's a really great way to like physically let go of stress.
So it's kind of like giving yourself a mini massage, but like from the inside out.
Exactly. And the great thing about these mindfulness practices is that you can do them anywhere, anytime. You're waiting in line at the grocery store. Take a few deep breaths.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're feeling overwhelmed at work.
Yeah.
Just do a quick body scan.
Mm-hmm.
Notice where you're holding tension. It's about, incorporating these little moments of mindfulness throughout your day.
I like that. It's like you said, small steps, big impact. Okay, so we've got mindfulness kind of in our back pocket now.
Right.
What else can we do to combat this stress and keep those blood sugar levels happy?
Well, we can't forget about the power of movement. I know you're a big fan of walking.
Oh, I am. It's my go-to stress reliever.
Yeah.
There's just something about being out in nature that really helps to clear my head.
Yeah.
But how does exercise actually help with blood sugar?
Well, it kind of works on a couple of levels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, exercise it's a great way to just burn off that excess glucose that's hanging out in your bloodstream, thanks to those pesky stress hormones.
So it's like giving those stress hormones a productive outlet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Instead of letting them wreak havoc on your blood sugar.
Right.
And then on top of that, exercise actually improves your insulin sensitivity.
Oh, right.
So it makes it easier for your body to use insulin effectively.
So it's like a win-win.
Yes.
Stress relief and better blood sugar management all in one.
You got it. And the best part, you don't have to become a marathon runner to reap the benefits. Even moderate activity like brisk walking, swimming, or yoga, can make a big difference. And speaking of yoga, that's another fantastic option because it kind of combines movement with mindfulness.
Oh, right.
So you get this double dose of stress busting power.
I've been meaning to try yoga. Maybe that's my sign to finally roll out the mat. So we've got mindfulness, we've got exercise.
Yeah.
What other like secret weapons do we have in our stress fighting arsenal here?
One of the most powerful things you can do is to try and establish a consistent routine.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that you were struggling with that a little,
Yeah.
especially with your work schedule being so unpredictable.
Yeah. Routine has always felt like this elusive unicorn for me, you know. But I hear it's important. So why is that?
Well, think about it. When you have a regular schedule for meals and exercise and sleep, it creates this sense of predictability and stability.
Okay, yeah.
Which can be incredibly grounding, especially when everything else just feels so chaotic. It's like you're creating this safe haven for your mind and body, right? In the middle of all the storms of life.
Okay, I like that analogy. So it's less about being like rigid with your schedule and more about creating a framework that kind of provides some sense of order.
Exactly. But you're right. Life throws curveballs.
It does all the time.
All the time. So how do you stick to a routine when that happens?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question.
Right. Well, I think flexibility is key. A routine doesn't have to be like this ironclad set of rules. It's more about identifying your non-negotiables. Those things like getting enough sleep, eating regular meals,
Okay.
and taking your medication as prescribed.
Right.
Those are your anchors. Those are the things you prioritize no matter what.
Okay.
And then you build in flexibility around those essentials.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between structure and being adaptable.
Exactly. And remember, progress over perfection.
Okay,
right.
that's such a good reminder.
Yeah.
We're all human. Life is messy. Okay, so we've got mindfulness, exercise, and routine as our power trio for stress management. Anything else we should be adding to our toolkit here?
Well, sometimes we all need backup, right? Even when we're sticking to a good routine. And that's where your support system comes in.
Okay.
Lean on your friends, your family, maybe even a diabetes support group. Just talking about what's stressing you out, that can make a world of difference.
I know. Sometimes just venting to a friend or a family member just helps me to feel so much lighter. It's like they're helping me carry the load.
Exactly. And it's not just about venting either. Sometimes just knowing that that someone else gets it, that you're not alone in this,
Right.
that can be incredibly validating, can be really empowering too.
It's like having like a cheerleader in your corner, reminding you that you got this.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget about the power of like professional support too, A therapist or a counselor who's experienced in, chronic illness-related stress, they can teach you some coping mechanisms that are tailored to your specific needs
Okay.
and help you develop a personalized stress management plan.
So it's like having like a coach in your corner.
Yeah.
Like-
Who can guide you through those rough patches and help you to come out stronger.
Okay, this is also helpful. It's like we're building this like multi-layered defense system against stress.
Yeah.
We've got mindfulness, exercise, routine, our support squad. Is there anything else we can add to our arsenal here?
Well, this might sound a bit unexpected, but tapping into your creative side can be really therapeutic. I know you mentioned loving to write. Have you ever considered journaling as a way to process your stress?
I used to keep a journal in college, but I kind of fell out of the habit.
Yeah.
Why is journaling so beneficial?
It's like having a private conversation with yourself, but on paper. It allows you to just, get all those swirling thoughts and emotions out of your head and into a tangible form.
Okay.
And sometimes just the act of writing things down, it can help you to gain like clarity
Right.
and perspective. Plus, it can be a great way to track your stress levels over time, and notice patterns that you might not have been aware of otherwise.
That's a great point. It's like you're turning those abstract feelings into concrete data points.
Yeah.
You can actually analyze and work with.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be just writing, Think about other creative outlets that you enjoy, like listening to music or painting, drawing, even gardening.
Right.
These activities, they can be incredibly meditative, and they can really help you to shift your focus away from your stressors.
I love that. It's like giving your mind a break and allowing it to recharge and reset.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And remember, it's not about being like good at these activities,
Right.
It's about the process, the act of creating, and the joy that it brings you.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've covered so much ground today, from the science behind stress and how it impacts diabetes to all these amazing strategies for managing both. What are some key takeaways you'd want our listeners to remember, as they kind of navigate this complex world of stress and diabetes?
Well, I think, first and foremost, remember that stress it's a normal part of life. We all experience it.
Right.
It's not something to be ashamed of.
It's like that saying, stress happens.
Exactly. What matters most is how we respond to it. And that's where all of these strategies come in. By building up our resilience and developing healthy coping mechanisms, we can navigate those stressful periods without letting them, completely derail our diabetes management or our overall well-being.
So it's about taking control.
Yeah.
And finding what works for us.
Exactly. And remember, managing diabetes, it's about more than just numbers.
Right.
It's about creating balance in both your mind and your body.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's
Yeah.
about the whole picture. Physical health,
Yeah.
emotional well-being, and everything in between.
Exactly. And while it may seem overwhelming at times, remember that even small mindful steps can make a huge difference in managing both stress and diabetes. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that. Small steps, big impact.
Yeah.
It's a mantra we can all live by.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you are not alone on this journey. There are resources available, there are people who care, and there are strategies that work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to reach out for support, experiment with different techniques, and celebrate those successes along the way, right?
This has been such a fascinating and empowering deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm walking away with a renewed sense of hope and a whole toolkit of strategies to try.
Me too.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Likewise.
As we've been talking about, tuning into those subtle clues and becoming detectives of our own bodies, I keep thinking about something you said earlier about blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And how it can really be an indicator of our stress levels.
I know, it's so important.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Those blood sugar readings, they can be like a window into how your body's responding to stress.
So it's not just about checking our blood sugar to make sure we're in a healthy range,
Yeah.
right? It's also about looking for patterns and noticing how our blood sugar fluctuates, like
Yeah.
in response to different situations.
Exactly. Like, let's say you've been consistently in your target range.
Okay.
But then you hit a really stressful week at work, right?
Right.
And suddenly your blood sugar starts to creep up, even though you haven't changed your diet or your exercise routine.
Right.
Well, that's a huge clue that stress is playing a role.
It's like our blood sugar is trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, pay attention. Something's off here.
Exactly. And the more we pay attention to those fluctuations, the better we become at recognizing our own personal stress triggers, right? And then we can start to develop those strategies to manage them.
So it's about taking those blood sugar readings and using them as data points, to help us inform our stress management plan.
Exactly. It's like keeping a stress journal, but instead of words, you're using numbers,
Right.
to track your progress and identify patterns.
That's such a smart way to look at it. And I bet, like, the more we do this, the more intuitive we become, right?
Yeah.
About recognizing those early warning signs that stress is starting to kind of creep in.
Absolutely. You'll start to notice those subtle shifts in your blood sugar, maybe even before you consciously feel stressed,
Oh.
And that early awareness, well, that allows you to intervene
Right.
with those mindfulness techniques or those coping mechanisms before things really spiral out of control.
So it's about being proactive
Yeah.
instead of reactive.
Exactly. It's about taking charge of your health and well-being and using all the tools you have, right? Including those blood sugar readings.
Yeah.
To really create a life that feels balanced and fulfilling.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
It feels like we've uncovered this whole, like, hidden layer of diabetes management that goes way beyond, just the food we eat and the exercise we get.
Yeah. It's really about taking this holistic approach, recognizing, how interconnected our minds and bodies really are, and understanding that stress management, it's a crucial part of living well with diabetes.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it's not about being perfect, right?
Mhm.
It's about progress. It's about self-compassion and finding what works for you.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Remember, you are not alone on this journey. There are resources out there, there are people who care, and there are strategies that work. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating those small victories, along the way.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into stress and diabetes. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.